Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for our BSc Sport Business Management talk today. My name is Laura and I'm the Student Engagement Officer at Marjon, and I'm going to be hosting your session today. Presenting is Dr. Phil Brown, who is a Senior Lecturer and the Programme Leader. We also have two student ambassadors, Josh and Laura, who will be helping to answer any questions that you have for us today. And to ask your question, please click on the speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that will open a chat to the right-hand side of your screen. I'll collect the questions and ask these to the team at the end of the presentation. But for now, I'm going to pass you over to Phil.
Thanks, Laura. Hello, everyone who's joining live on the course talk, or anyone who's listening back later on. Welcome to Marjon, virtually welcome to Marjon at least. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about our new BSc Sport Business Management programme. Talk to me about the content, some of the themes that we explore, how we support students, and how you might kind of engage with the programme with us. And then we're going to open up to questions for things that students want us to ask and answer. Just before we do that, it's worth talking a little bit about Marjon, that we are a different type of university. We're much smaller than many, and we're much more kind of student focused. So we're expecting to get 15 to 20 students on this new programme, which means that our kind of personal contact and relationships are much different. And I think that's why we are ranked #1 in England for teaching quality. It's not just about our academic knowledge and how we apply that in the industry, but it's about how we work with you to apply that as an individual. So we are ranked really well for student experience, for graduate employability and those types of things. So we're a safe pair of hands and an experienced university with 180 years of history. It's a new programme for us in terms of the sport business management, but it's not the first time that we've taught these areas. It's just packaged in a slightly different way, responding to changes in the sector and in the sports industry. So we've previously run a sport development programme which was focused and had a sport business management route, but we've teamed up with colleagues, and some of my colleagues are on the screen there. So in the far right corner is Laura Wallace, and Laura works in the business school, and we're collaborating across our School of Sport with the business school on the new programme. And then there's some of the other lecturing colleagues who you'll meet, but you're taught by experienced academics who are engaged theoretically, but most importantly in an applied aspect of sport and sport management. So we want you to be thinking about not only this as a university course in terms of its academic nature, but also in terms of its applied nature, which kind of takes me on to how you'll be taught really. University does expect an element of academic underpinning. There's also much more independent study than you have been used to previously before. So we'll explore ideas in lectures and in seminars and in tutorials and through projects, and we'll hopefully prick your interests, and then you'll pick up things that you're most interested in, and then read around those and develop your knowledge more fully. We've also got applied industry experience, which means you're not going to learn just from us in the classroom or in the seminar room talking to us or talking to fellow students. You'll be engaging with industry practitioners, and that's right the way from the first year all the way through to the final year. So you'll be on placements, you'll be working on sports events. There's even opportunities for international placements, which I'll talk about in a minute, and potential gap year as well. And that comes back to you as an individual. When you arrive at Marjon, you might be with 15 or 20 other people. That will be on this programme, but we do share modules across other programmes, as it says, delivered by specialists across both schools and business practitioners. So we'll aim to get to know you as an individual. You'll come with preconceived ideas about where you think you want to go. We'll probably talk and explore alternative routes as well, and then try to tailor the way we work with you around your personal strengths and weaknesses and where you see yourself going. But we also obviously need to make sure we cover the learning outcomes and the curriculum on the programme. We are really pleased to be, as far as we know, the only sport business management degree with double accreditation. So we've got two forms of accreditation. One is through general management, so that's through the CMI, which stands for the Chartered Management Institute, and through our business modules on the programme, you'll receive a level 5 certificate in management, and there's no extra cost for that, and there's no extra assessment. So you'll leave with your degree from Marjon plus a CMI certificate level industry recognised qualification. And in addition to that, just today we've had formal written confirmation from CIMSPA, who are the Chartered Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity, and we've mapped our programme to occupational standards with a specialist focus on sport development, but the occupational standards are generic for management. And by the end of year 2, you'll have achieved entry manager, and by the end of year 3, you'll have achieved general manager. So you're going to be in a really strong position to say to anybody. I used to have colleagues in the sports industry that would say, it's all very well graduates having these academic qualifications as they saw them, even though they were applied, but they don't have the industry credibility. So well, they certainly do now, because we've got management from the Chartered Institute and occupational standards from CMI, who work with Sport England and have worked with universities to develop professional occupational standards, and we've worked with them for 2 years. So as I said, we're the only degree to our knowledge that have got both of those. So it's really exceptional that you'll be leaving with an academic qualification and industry recognition built into your awards. And with both of those, there's no additional costs and no additional assessments, because we've mapped the assessment in the degree to those outcomes. It can really make a difference when it comes to employment, because your degree is going to be recognised because we're an excellent university, but it's also going to be recognised by employers, so they can start to look at the ways that they'll trust qualification more in terms of that. So we found that, or CMI's research has found that graduates kind of get a 10% earning increase for accredited courses, and they're more likely to be in graduate employment if they've got a programme that's accredited by the industry rather than unaccredited business courses. So these things are really important. They might not seem massively important now, but they will do in 3 years' time when you're a graduate and seeking employment. So in terms of the programme, how does it look? Now, sport business management possibly looks slightly different in different institutions and different universities. So we get you to consider the breadth of the sports landscape. It's a really, really complicated picture, and therefore the job opportunities are diverse depending on where you are and where you fit. So we do talk about the public sector, which means government. Government might sound instantly a bit boring, but they are the ones that set policy nationally. So if it wasn't for government policy, we would never have hosted the London Olympics, for instance. We also talk about the third sector. So we think about voluntary sports organisations, or more formally not-for-profit, because just because they're voluntary doesn't mean they're all run by volunteers. So it's huge organisations within the voluntary sector, and then the commercial sector, which their primary objective is to make money, but they do that through sport. And it's not really as clearly divided as the graphic illustrates, because lots of organisations work across those sectors. So things like national governing bodies, the FA, for instance, they've got commercial activity that they do. They work at the grassroots with voluntary sports clubs, and they deliver public sector activities working with government. So there's a blurring of these kind of landscape boundaries. So we explore those kind of connections. How does the sport industry connect? And we also focus on its scale. So we work with small community sports organisations, then there's regional organisations, national organisations. So I talked about national governing bodies just a minute ago, and also international organisations. So that might be in the commercial sector, big corporations like Nike, or it could be in terms of international organisations like the International Olympic Committee or organisations like FIFA. So it's a huge picture from grassroots sport all the way up to international sport in terms of how sport is organised, how sport is run, and how it's managed. So it's a complex picture to understand. With our focus with staff expertise also in terms of sport development, we do look at how organisations often values driven or increasingly values driven, and therefore issues around societal development, organisational development, customer service, soft skills and things like that, and how sport is used for wider benefit. So we might think about how sport is used for the physical activity and well-being agenda. Currently, when we're all locked in our houses or have been locked in our houses through lockdown, we I think more than ever we start to appreciate the kind of the cultural value of sport and the physical value of sport and its social interaction. So we think about how those things work, how some people might be excluded from certain activities, how we can make it more inclusive. From a business point of view, a more inclusive product means that more people are going to access services. In terms of the themes that we unpack on the programme, so I've talked about the sports landscape. Customer service skills are really important. It's easier to maintain existing customers than it is to lose them and try to recruit new ones constantly. You don't have a sustainable business model if you're in that world. So we look at customer service, we look at themes in terms of strategy, in terms of leadership, marketing, how we sell the products, whether they're values driven or whether they're kind of innovation driven. We look at themes in management. You'll be running events, so there's an aspect of event management, and there's core issues around human resources, how we recruit, deploy and reward our staff, and then what are the issues around business finance. And we've got quite a strong focus on entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. So intrapreneurship, where you work for an organisation, but you work in the spirit of an entrepreneur, where you're kind of innovative and creative. So we've got those themes that run through the programme from the first year to the third year. We also try to promote the cultural experience of students. So you're with us on campus or virtually learning between September and May normally, which leaves you a big summer experience. So we've got a formal arrangement with Camp America, where we can get funded bursaries through our career development team, the Futures team, to help you spend 9 weeks working and living in Camp America, whether that's in a sports leadership role, whether it's in a camp counsellor role. You'll definitely learn and apply those soft skills through working in that experience. There's also an option to do a year-long industry placement. Now, it's not a sandwich programme, so it's not structured deliberately to have a sandwich year between years 2 and 3, but we can manage that process, that if a student wants to do an industry placement for a whole year, whether that's local in a sports organisation or whether that's national or even international, we can manage that within the programme. So the world literally is your oyster in terms of that opportunity for a gap year. As I said, we try to connect with our partners. Now, I've identified most of our partners are local to Plymouth and the Southwest, but there are international opportunities as I outlined previously. Now, the reason for that is that if you're living in Plymouth and working in Plymouth and studying in Plymouth, it makes sense to have a local partner to go and experience your work in the sports industry with, rather than saying that you wanted to go to some international placement somewhere difficult. So we have through the programme, there's a placement, a formal placement in the second year, which you would do, which is up to 100 hours, where you would choose where you want that to be. And there's also an event management module in the second year that runs with an employer partner. So there's a sports event where students would develop, run and evaluate that programme. In terms of how students are assessed, there are no exams. There are a couple of in-class multi-choice tests on some first year modules, but most of it is kind of business orientated. It's clearly academically underpinned, but there's business reports, essays, presentations, business pitches, presentations, business plans, and then some reflection on your practice. So reflective practice in terms of academic skills, but also in terms of your business skills. What is it that are the gaps that you want to fill, and how do you fill those throughout your time with us? In terms of the facilities, we've got some great facilities in the sports centre, but we also have business specific facilities. We've got in the business school called The Edge, and that's a kind of an incubation space for students to work alongside people that rent that space as young entrepreneurs. And there's the whole kind of incubation around the development of your own business ideas. So if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit and you think that you want to set up your own business and run your own business, some of the final year modules you can apply to do the practice of doing that as part of your programme. Or if you'd rather work for someone, work in an organisation, you can go off and apply those business skills within the sector as well, within an organisation. In terms of who we are and what we do, the reason we get great student feedback, and we've got our student awards tomorrow, is that we really care about students. We're a small university, we build personal relationships, so the boundary between lecturer and student gets narrowed. We become partners, we become friends, we become colleagues, and that's really important to us, whether that's face to face or whether that's online, as we moved online when the COVID thing started to happen, we were having online drinks on a Friday evening with our first year students just to stay connected with them. So it's really important to us that we've got those relationships, because very quickly, if you're in this game long enough, like I've been for the last 13 years, the students after 3 years, it goes very quickly and they no longer your students, they become your colleagues. And then you invite them back in and they share their experience with current students around the program. So lots of the partners that I talked about previously, they are students that have done this degree or similar degrees with us, and now they're out in industry, so they exactly know what it's like to be a Marjon student and how that journey works. If you're local to Plymouth, then you know that it's a great city with access to Dartmoor and the beaches and all the rest of it. If you're not, then it's a great city to be in within the southwest. It's accessible. There's the city feel, although it's only relatively small, and we've got all the other facilities. And Marjon's shares the city with another university, Plymouth University, but we're much smaller and we're very, very student focused. In terms of your career routes, the world is your oyster, really. Sport business management is designed to give you the skills that are transferable. So just because it's sport business management, actually we'll be looking at business management practices and applying those to sport. So you can take those skills literally anywhere, internationally or nationally. It might be that you focus on events, it might be that you focus on development, it might be that you focus on running facilities, or it might be that you're really engaged by professional sport or international sport. So it really is up to you to shape your experience within the framework of the programme. I'm really keen to stay in touch with people, so live talks are obviously not the same as meeting people in person. So if people want to get in touch with me, we can have a chat over Teams, we can have a chat on the phone, and hopefully come September we'll be seeing each other much more frequently than was possible quite now. But that's it for me in terms of the programme talk. So I'll hand back to Laura.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Phil. We do have a few questions that have come in, so I'm just going to head straight over there. And if we could stick with you, Phil, for the first question. And I think you've touched upon it slightly there towards the end. And the question is, I'm unsure whether which route to take. Sorry. Will I have the chance to experience all routes throughout the course?
I suppose I'm not 100% sure on what the route is, because at Marjons we do lots and lots of different sports degrees. So, you know, clearly they wouldn't get a chance to do sports science or sports therapy, which are completely different programs and lead people into, obviously something like sports therapy is a very prescribed, narrow band of the sports industry. But on the program, we certainly take the sport business management program. It's not a HR program for sport. It's not a accountancy program for sport. It's not a marketing program for sport. It does all of those things generically, which is a manager needs. So with our SIMSPA accreditation, we map right across the whole spectrum. Now, when it comes to students personalising that, there are elements of module choice where they can say, well, I really enjoyed that, I want to do a bit more of that, or I want to do my placement in a certain area of sport. You know, so you could say I'm desperately keen on sport marketing in professional sport, therefore I'm going to do my placement with one of the professional sports teams. So there's definitely an area of specialism, and that comes through with honours projects where students select their own specialist area of interest to develop some expertise. So we'd really strongly encourage that, but it is deliberately designed to be a broad sport management degree, so things are transferable, whether people stay in sport or whether they actually work in business more generally.
Excellent, thank you, Phil. Josh, if you wouldn't mind, we come across to you for this one. It's a question around time management, and it says, this course looks quite busy. Will I be able to have time to play sport and study?
So to answer your question, yes. So my day, typically train 3 times a day, and classes, you have class about 2 times a day. And then you've got more than enough time to, you know, walk around campus, go to the library, get some food, catch up with friends, and, you know, there's more than enough time to do both.
Excellent, thank you, Josh. And Phil, if we could just jump back to you for this one, again, as a course specific, talking about the splits between practical and theory, would you be able to give a bit more information on that, please?
Yeah, with sport business management, there's obviously no coaching element. So we've got other degrees where there's an overt kind of coaching practical sense where people are literally running around sports halls. There's none of that on the sport business management course, but there are obviously practical things. So in terms of practical things, we'd see that as running events, on placement, case study, kind of when we get guest speakers in, external things. So it's not just a question of us being in lectures with a PowerPoint talking through complex theory and then expecting students just to go and read around that. It's all applied, it's all kind of real world. The case studies are around real situations that's happened in real businesses, real sports organisations. So there's that combination. If people want a really practical programme, as in running around, then one of our other programs around sport development and coaching might be more appropriate, but practical in terms of getting your hands dirty. There's plenty of opportunities, particularly as students move through. Employers are more happy to work with students that have got experience than someone who's literally as green as the grass, because they can start to utilise students' kind of growing expertise as an asset to that company. So when it comes to placement, it's not a question of placement organisations just babysitting students. They're getting the most out of the students, and students are doing project work for them.
Brilliant. Thank you, Phil. Laura, if we could bring you in for this question here. It's a question around whether there is any employment support during and after I finish the course.
Yeah, so there's the Futures team, which help you with employability, and they're really good helping you build your CV. And they still help you after you've finished your degree as well. So there's loads of opportunities to get help to be employed.
And how long is that support on for? Do you know?
I think it's 3 years, but I'll have to check.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. Josh, if we could come back to you for this next question. So what made you choose Marjon? Why did you want to study down here?
So I'm from London. A bit about myself. Sometimes it can get a bit too hectic. Plymouth's kind of the opposite. Everything's more slowed down. You can go for a walk. You know, you've got the countryside. You've got scenery. You know, I think the pace is a lot more slower down here. So especially for, you know, if you're studying, it's a lot easier as opposed to being up London where, you know, you're going to get tempted to do things, and I'd rather just keep my distance and just focus on my studies.
Brilliant. Thank you, Josh. Laura, I'm also just going to ping the question to you as well. What was it that made you want to study down at Marjon?
I think mainly it was the facilities, and then the underpinning qualifications that you get with your degree is really good because it sort of sets you up to be employable straight away when you finish your degree.
Brilliant, thank you. Just a note to attendees, there is a slight delay when you ask your questions, so do keep them coming in, and it will just take a couple of seconds for us to be able to see them. So I'm just going to refresh it here to see if there's anything new coming in.
Laura, just it might be worth me saying a little bit more about the employability, because in the third year we've got a graduate employability module.
Yeah.
And we've just been working with a group of 5 organisations in the sports sector. Even with COVID, they stayed committed to the module. We did a series of online interviews in the last few weeks, which were simulations where students went through the process working with us and the Futures team of a job application. So they did letters and CVs, matching up their skills and experience to real roles in the sports sector. And then they did presentations and job interviews with us as lecturers and with one of the practitioners from the 5 different sports organisations that they could choose, and that's led to 2 follow-up interviews, well actually 3 follow-up interviews, 2 with one organisation, which is Saint Southwest, which is a football coaching organisation, and one with Premier Education. So it's really that industry connection and that employability thread is not just kind of shipped out to the Futures teams. It's part of what we do from day dot when students join us and we start looking at career plans in the first year. That should then connect through to their placement, their events, their final year projects, and then into the employability module. So we've kind of got a good experience of helping students get where they want to go, and most importantly being able to be articulate about what they've done, not just saying, well, I did a degree and then leaving it there, back to explaining to employers what that looks like and what skills they've got.
Brilliant, thank you, Phil. Okay, so we've got one more question that's come in here, and Phil, if we could just stick with you for this one. There's a question around Is there any funding support if I wanted to do a placement year?
There's not funding support directly from the university. What some organisations will do is they'll offer a paid internship, and those are competitive opportunities. So it might be that there's a application to do that, and then the student will be paid to do that role. There's funding support for Camp America, which I realise is slightly different, but the placements are integral to the programme, the second year placement. But we don't pay things like travel or expenses. That's part of the deal that students sign up for with the placement module, hence why we often get them to work with local sports organisations rather than saying, why don't you go and work, I don't know, somewhere a long way away, and then say that the students have got to find their own accommodation to go off and do that. So the international placement, if there's external bursaries, we could help that, and the futures team could help with that, but it's not something that we can fund directly as part of the programme.
Brilliant, thank you, Phil. I'm just going to give this a quick refresh, see if anything else is going to come in. But as you can see on the screen there, so Phil has included his contact details there, as well as Laura Wallace's. So if you do have any further questions, please do get in touch. Alternatively, you can contact us on visitus@marjon.ac.uk, and we will get back to you as well. And I'm just going to post that email address in the chat there so you can see that. But thank you again for joining us once again. Sorry. On the end slide there, you can see that there are other talks that are also going on towards the end of this week and next. So again, if you would like to attend any of these, please contact the email address of Visit Us, and we will get you signed up for them. But in the meantime, do stay in touch and please stay safe.